Today I want to talk about how we're headed down the wrong road in Pennsylvania as far as public land. I'm sure this is going to ruffle some people's feathers, but I think this was my 25th season archery hunting, rifle hunting in Pennsylvania. In fact, I gave up the gun hunting for a couple years because of my frustration of just what it's like out there. This season was a little bit different. I hunted a lot less than I ever did, and I tried to do some filming in the process. Overall, I probably had more success seeing bucks in general, but there's just not any denying that the overall deer numbers are extremely down. It used to be when I would go and scout, I'd bump deer consistently. I'd see, signs that deer were around. Shit, rubs, scrapes. Now I don't see any of that kind of stuff really until the rut. I think we've gone too far. I really do. I'm not sure we should keep issuing the same amount of doe tags that we keep issuing. I know why the Game Commission's doing it. They say that it's to prevent the spread of CWD, but here's the big problem with that. They're issuing all these doe tags, and for the most part, those doe tags are getting used on public land. The private landowners aren't just stacking up does like the guys on public land. In fact, a lot of them take their doe tags and go to public land. You can't blame them. They want to hunt deer, they want to harvest deer, but they want to keep the numbers on their ground consistent. And there's a drastic difference between the public land and the private land. The public land, you can go days without seeing deer, at least here in the central part of the state. As far as like the management areas towards the cities, there's a lot of deer there, but again, if you don't have access to the private land, you're pissing in the wind. You're going to compete with every other guy that doesn't have a lease, that doesn't want to harvest deer on their land because they want to try to hold more deer and attract more bucks. And just overall, the experience is going down the shitter for everybody. We've kind of made big antlers, which I'm not going to lie, I like big bucks, right? But we've made big antlers so key to everything that the private land that used to be open, that a lot of guys hunted, has been either locked down behind posters because people did stupid shit and treated landowners like shit, or, they've been approached by people who are willing to open their wallet to hunt deer. And maybe you're one of those guys, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that more and more guys are going for less and less land. It's pretty apparent that all these extra seasons that we've introduced over the last 20 years have made a massive impact on the experience on public land. And it's not just the deer either, it's the turkeys. Here, I didn't even go out last year in spring gobbler season. And that kind of hurts, because as much as I like hunting deer, there's nothing like hunting turkeys. I mean, when they start gobbling in the morning and you know that they're coming, that experience to me is 10 times what it is hunting deer. I've actually referred to it in the past as poor man elk hunting. I'm not expecting anybody to feel sorry for me. I choose to hunt public land, and I certainly have a great career that would afford me the ability to either buy land or lease land, but that's not something I'm really interested in. However, I can see the frustration by a lot of guys, and especially kids. I have a couple friends that have young kids, and the majority of those kids are losing interest in this extremely fast. And I have a feeling that the ones that stick around are going to have some pretty good hunting at some point in time. When they're the only ones left, they won't have to fight for all the prime spots on public land. We've condensed everybody so much at this point that, anything you can see on a map somebody else is hunting there too. When I first got into like really being into figuring out the public land, you had to learn how to read a topographic map. There was no Onyx, Hunt Stand, none of that stuff. That knowledge wasn't something that was openly shared with everybody. But as, media like this became popular, guys focused in on what can I teach you, because videos like this with opinions where people kind of share their feelings honestly don't do that well on YouTube. The algorithm, I don't know what its deal is, but it just doesn't find the right audience unless you say something that really pisses people off, and that's not my agenda. My agenda as an outdoor content creator is to most times be positive. I want to have fun. I want to go fishing. I want to go hunting. But when it becomes pure work, a lot of people are going to hang it up. Me, myself, I've toned down how much time and effort I'm willing to put into this whole thing. I still go out and scout late season. I hunt multiple WMUs. I hunt, 4D, 4A, 2G, 2E. So I'm not just like sitting around and thinking that the deer are going to show up and come to me. I spend probably 10 times the amount scouting that I do actually hunting. And I still don't see great amounts of deer. I don't even really see them at times that I used to traditionally see them, driving down the roads at night. One thing I noticed, that we're getting ready to go into the second week of rifle season here, and the one thing I've noticed is the amount of trucks that I see out and about. I can't tell you about passing a single vehicle coming out of the woods where somebody was loading up a deer. Obviously, people were shooting deer. I mean, you can hear the guns going off and whatnot, which is one thing about rifle season versus archery season. But overall numbers of the deer we used to shoot aren't there. And the sign doesn't lie. I mean, I'm not just like blundering down through the woods hoping to stumble into some random shit. I'm looking at places where there should be deer. I think one of the biggest things that's a problem too, and kind of goes hand in hand with reducing deer populations, in addition to CWD, is the habitat. It seems like now it's more common that the state will cut timber, which needs to be done. I mean, there's certainly places that I go and scout where I've looked at it on a map, and I get there and I step out of the truck and I look around for 5 minutes, and I just know that walking it is going to be a complete waste of my time. So the cuts are good, right? But they're not really thinking about how they cut. They're going in there and sectioning off blocks of timber without regard to any kind of the funnels or natural movements of deer, and just letting these companies come in and just clear it. And then when they clear it, they drop all the tops so that there can be regrowth. But then what do they do after that? They turn around and they fence it. So they fence it for 10 years. So now all that regrowth the deer can't get to. And by the time they're ready to take the fence down, it is an absolute wall of trees. The deer don't go through it a lot. I mean, some of them get in there and whatnot, but if you can imagine a big buck trying to walk through, shit that this is this big around, that's not something he's gonna really tear into all the time. At least I don't think so. So we create habitat, but then we don't do anything to allow the deer to get to it. And as far as like planting food plots and such, once in a while I'll see food plots, but the majority of them get planted once and then they never get planted again. It's like if it's not clover or something that's going to keep reoccurring, it's pretty much shot. They like to plant the fields though for birds, You know, selling pheasant stamps is lucrative, I'm sure. The dove fields are well managed. But I have a friend that's on the food and habitat crew, and the amount of guys that they have for the amount of land that's out there that needs to be managed is dismal. I'm sure some of you at this point are thinking, you know, that I'm just bitching and crying around about where we're at. And it's not that at all. I genuinely give a shit about if this keeps going and people like it. Because with 8 million acres of public land in Pennsylvania, if we're not paying for it, there's going to have to start to be options where somebody else helps pay for it. And that means they're going to cut trails into it. They're going to sell pieces of it off. And so we can't just keep accumulating all this land indefinitely for a sport that's on a downward trajectory. I'm not telling you to not shoot does. I'm asking you that if you hunt public land, to try to make a little bit more of an informed decision. If you go in somewhere and you don't really see deer, you know, don't fill your tag there. Fill your tag somewhere where the tags need to be filled. Look at the DMAP areas where they're, you know, pointing us to the population numbers are high, and shoot them there. It's kind of hard to go into an area where you don't think there's deer and then advocate for things like driving and killing everything that you have a tag for. I know it's taken the wind out of my sails quite a bit. I still love to hunt, and I will probably hunt until I can no longer do it anymore. But my kid's not interested, and that bothers me. My friends' kids, some of them are super interested, and some of them, if they go an hour, they're ready to go home because the Xbox has a better rate of return on entertainment. I don't know what the answer is. I hope something changes soon, though. And I think that we got to look in the mirror if we want it to change. We can't expect the state to allocate the right amount of doe tags that we think should be used in an area. I mean, these WMUs are so big that there's definitely pockets where there's too many deer. But I always hear guys telling me, you know, oh, well, I don't have that problem where I hunt. This piece of public land where I hunt doesn't have that problem. And let me tell you what happens, because I've seen it enough. I've covered thousands of miles in the last few years in Pennsylvania. Everybody goes to the location where there's lots of deer, and they kill the shit out of them. And then there's no more deer there, and so they don't want to waste their time, so they go to the next one. So it's only a matter of time until your honey hole is next. I guarantee it. Don't be so blind to think it can't be you. It's happened to me. It's happened to my friends. Change something. Don't help the problem.